Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 278 of the Strength Coach Podcast, the official podcast of Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. All right, I'm your host, Anthony Renna. The show notes are located at continuefit.com. It's where I keep all my resources, including information about my new book, Be Like the Best, as well as the Be Like the Best workbook. The book consists of 50 interviews with top fitness pros, and after each interview is a Be Like, which is just an action step or a challenge that will help you be like the best. Go to belikethebest.com or continuefit.com to check all that out. All right, we're going to try to keep the podcast as back to normal as possible as we can with some of the different topics, back to different training topics. So today on the StrengthCoach.com Coach's Corner, I did speak to him about MBSC's first staff meeting on Zoom, the power of connection, and how the client letter went to all his clients about continuing memberships. But we also talk about one-arm suspension rows, so getting back into training a little bit there. For the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment, got back on the old segment again. I'm on with Alwyn to talk about reaching out to former clients. For the Train Heroic Data-Driven Coaching segment, Adam and Tim are back to discuss concurrent training. As you know, I've been saying it for a while. Make sure you check out trainheroic.com if you're not doing some of this online stuff. Obviously, you're a little bit late to the game, but it's never too late to start. They got a free 14-day trial. Let them know I sent you if you love it, and you'll save 10% off the first year of the Pro or Elite Edition. All right, today for the BodyByBoyleOnline.com Hit the Gym with the Strength Coach segment, I have on Christopher Duffin. He's the owner of Kabuki Strength. He's also a world champion powerlifter and the author of a book called The Eagle and the Dragon, which I listened to last month. It was really good, so I wanted to get Chris on. We talk about the significance of the eagle and the dragon. We talked about the concept of whatever has happened to you is not who you are, so overcoming any past stuff. Becoming familiar with fear as a practice. Coaching from the perspective of not expecting people to be like you. Talked about the importance of relationships and finished up with how strength can help us and why teaching people about strength is so important. Great stuff coming up from Christopher Duffin in a little bit. For the Functional Movement System segment, Gray Cook continues his 6-part series. Today, he talks about strategy versus tactics. And we conclude Josh Henkin, founder of DVRT and Ultimate Sandbags series on multiplanar training. So today, Josh is going to finish up with higher levels of multiplanar training. We've got a long one for you today. Chris's interview is probably about an hour, so lots of things to get to. So let's get on the phone with Coach Boyle. All right, now it's time for the StrengthCoach.com Coach's Corner with Coach Boyle. StrengthCoach.com, the world's best source for strength and conditioning information. It's also a resource for what's happening right now in the world, the COVID-19 crisis. And we made a special resource page. We have so many resources from just so many great coaches. It's all on one page, but it's all over the site as well. We set up a place to view all the home workouts because we've been getting home workouts from people like Brijesh Patel and Joe Banyai and Altis and Coach Dose, and it's endless. Coach Boyle's been posting a bunch of them as well. We set up a COVID-19 forum area discussing topics like online training, handling memberships, and really just how to navigate through this whole thing right now and more. It's nice to have that community, and Coach Boyle even remarked today about how great it is with how many international people are responding to this stuff. We're getting viewpoints from all over the world. So we also extended the trial. So you could try Strength Coach to come out for normally 3 days. It's now 30 days, just $1. And you'll have access to everything, the articles, videos, and programs, and as well as what we consider the best forum on the net. And Coach Boyle's on there every day answering questions. So he's going to do that right now. Coach, how you doing?
I'm doing good, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm hanging in there. been busy trying to keep up with all this stuff and help people out, providing all these resources. So, here's something different that happened just now. Coach Boyle and MBSC had a staff meeting on Zoom. Coach, I just want to talk to you about how that went, because this is what we're just trying to have some consistency, some normalcy. Talk to us how the staff meeting went.
First, I want to congratulate you because you have done an amazing job sort of getting on top of all this. So you've done great work, and I appreciate it. I was saying to you today, I get all the emails and the Twitter messages thanking me for the great job we're doing. But the reality is that it's what a great job you're doing. So thank you. And then we'll go back to the staff meeting idea. The staff meeting thing actually went great, to be honest. It was really nice to see everybody. You can see everybody's face. You can see their smile. You can talk to them. It was excellent. It's interesting also. I wish I'd bought Zoom stock because I'm sure that in spite of the stock market being down, I bet Zoom is way up because everybody is Zooming. And we're doing online workouts. Sean DeWispler, please, Sean, send me I need one of those pronunciation keys to your name. But Sean is the man, is with our Thrive group, him and Bruce. But Sean is so good, and he kind of jumped in helping Bob and Carrie with Zoom and helping us get our online workouts done, and they've set up all the Thrive clubs. So the cool thing about this, as usual, is it's kind of like the song, you find out who your friends are, and great country song. I know you love country music, but it's really true. Like, you see the people that step right up in bad times, like, hey, I can help you with this. Hey, this will work out. And it's been really good. I think there's a lot of good that will come out of this. I was talking to somebody today. I actually did a little podcast for a guy in Lebanon this morning. And one of the things that, he was asking about, people saying, oh, it's all going to be virtual. Everyone's going to go online. And I feel the polar opposite. I think people are going to be standing outside the gym the day it opens, waiting to get in. Because we talked about this, I think, on the last podcast. They're going to be dying to interact with other human beings. You can't replace that interaction. Zoom is a pretty good alternative, to be honest. It's pretty cool to be kind of watching the person, live right there and seeing them kind of smile and watching people joke back and forth. It was very, very good. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
The thing, just to continue on that, because somebody had asked on the forum as well, what do you think the effect is going to be? I agree with you in terms of, I think so. It depends on the gym too. I think athletes are coming back. They're going to be breaking the door down the night before, number one. And by the way, I mean adult athletes too, the golfers and the tennis players and the people, the weekend warriors. They're going to be in there dying for this. I wonder about some of the group classes. People are going to be a little shy in the beginning, not wanting to go. There's just going to be some changes. You're going to have to, as a gym, you're going to think about, all right, guys, this is what we're doing to remain germ-free, quote unquote. Bring your own mats and bring your own towels and make sure you have, maybe there's going to be more sanitizer around. There's going to be more wipes around. Gym owners are going to have to do other things, but you're right. I think there's a certain person as well that they're not going to want to work out at home. They miss the sled. They miss their Olympic lifts. They miss the amount of heavy weight that they had. There's still a lot of people that are still that person is still coming back to the gym. I just think it opens a lot more opportunity. I think a lot of people out there are going to say, hey, I can work out at home. I could do more. Maybe, I'm going to MBSC Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I can do something on Thursday and Saturday and online. Get the program going that Mike has. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here moving forward. I don't think it's going to destroy, training. Not even close.
No, that's a really good point. I think you're probably right. I think you'll see more people who will realize, hey, I can't work out at home. And I think that'll be a really good thing. And I think there'll be a lot of people who'll also realize that I miss the community. Like you said, I miss the weights. I miss the sled. I don't think that's what they're going to miss. I think they're going to realize that I miss the guy or the woman that, talk to in the group. I miss the banter. I miss talking while we're foam rolling. I miss talking during the warm up. We're social beings. And that's why it's funny. And this has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but people used to always say to me, why don't you go after runners and triathletes? And I'm like, because they're by nature kind of isolationists. They're people that want to be out by themselves for long periods of time. the people that we want, the people that are our people, are kind of the people that grew up in team environments or wanted to be in team environments, or even people that, were in the band, or people that were in clubs. They're people that want to be with other people. And that's a basic, tribes. We've talked about this whole thing, with strengthcoach.com, of trying to sort of develop our own tribe. People want to be part of something, and they want to interact.
I totally agree. And I think that's where, like you mentioned, strengthcoach.com, obviously we're the owners of it, but part of what we love about it is this community. Like I said, we have 26 different countries over the last month that people have signed up, just, looking for this sense of community, looking for help, looking for answers, and just kind of a shoulder to cry on even sometimes, just to get it in there. We're going to start doing some Zoom calls as well with you on strengthcoach.com, just to kind of be able to answer some of those forum questions for our members. So, but yeah, I agree 100%. I just meant, you had already said the personal connection. I was thinking, but people are also going to they do miss their sleds.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. They do. But at the same time, I think that like I said, I think really, big picture, they can buy, you could buy everything for your yard. You can buy everything for your home gym. And it's amazing the number of, Kevin Carr's got a kick-ass home gym. Have you seen his pictures?
I did.
But it's crazy. Cindy's like, he's been burglarizing the gym. Like, he's got everything. And so you realize, that's when you got to buy at the bargain table at the Perform Better seminars when they come back.
Did Cindy
set up?
Did she is she accusing Kevin of stealing stuff from MBSC?
Yeah, stealing. Yeah, she was just she's yelling. Why'd you do that? It's a joke. We're okay.
Cindy actually picked the stuff up and brought it over there. So who we kidding? Coach,
they both have pickup trucks. Just so
there you go. See, Coach, we posted a few letters as templates for people. Elspeth Vino, Frank Dolan, TJ Lopez, sending to their clients about continuing memberships. And I've gotten, I can't tell you, that people are talking, they've gotten great responses, such amazing support. Elspeth, being the person that she is, had like actual percentages. I think she said 63% of the people are just continuing their membership, and 23% are continuing, but will they're going to continue some other sessions afterwards, whatever. I know you guys were thinking about sending one out. How did that go, if you even know?
In truth, one, did you realize that 63% of all statistics are made up?
There you go.
So I don't know exactly what happened, to be honest. I know that right when the letter got out, I got a text from one of my friends, clients, father and son, that come and said, make sure you bill us for April. And I think we're going to get a lot of that, to be very honest. I think what will happen is it will separate out in terms of, you'll realize, because you hate to say it, there are going to be people that will be very significantly affected by this. And there'll be other people, usually older people that have saved their money, who are not going to be all that affected by this. And a lot of those people, as it turns out, are very, very happy to support businesses that they believe in, whether it's going and getting takeout from restaurants, or whether it's continuing the gym membership, or whatever's going on. Again, we're starting, I know I probably sound all kumbaya, touchy-feely here, but we are starting to see a lot of the good in people in these situations, because I'm amazed at how many people have had sort of positive responses. Elspeth's response was great. She went from thinking, oh my God, I think people were thinking, oh God, I might be out of business, to, wow, I have some really amazing clients. And that's a really nice feeling, just in a general sense.
I agree. I only have like 5 clients right now, I just trained part-time, and a couple of them sent me money. I was like, don't send me money. They sent this for next month. And I told them not to, but they just did it, because obviously they want to support me. And Barrett and I were talking, we have to get we have a cleaning lady every 2 weeks, There's some quick marriage tip for everybody. Best marriage a tip you can get is get a cleaning lady. But yeah, we're sending her normal check, even though obviously she's not coming. And I went to the deli today, got a bacon and egg just because I'm trying to help him out, whatever I can do, like on the way over, just to kind of continue whatever normalcy we can have.
Oh, exactly. I think that's exactly what you want to do. We've been trying to think about that too, in terms of, I keep trying to think every time I want to buy something, if I can, I try to think, is there a local business that I can get this from? Unfortunately, sometimes when it's, Home Depot or Stop and Shop, I think they don't really need my money, but at the same time, hopefully we can continue to find ways to support, because it's small business is the one that's going to take this on the chin. I think this stimulus plan is going to be really helpful for a lot of these small businesses, but it's still, right now, we're even trying to figure out whether that would work for us or not. But I think everybody should look into that. Everybody should talk to their accountant. Everybody, if they know somebody at a bank, investigate this stuff to try to find whether or not any of this money, because theoretically, at least, if you kept everybody on the payroll, the loan is forgivable, which basically means the government's giving you money to pay your employees. That's effectively what's happening. And it's also can go to pay your rent. So we had already gone through. We were, unfortunately, I think being ahead put us behind, because we had already counseled everybody to go and apply for unemployment, because we had said last week when we talked about this that we want to be there literally as a business when they come back. And the best way to do that is to have them collect unemployment and us use our available funds to pay for fixed expenses other than payroll. But the way this stimulus plan is turning out, that may not end up being the best plan. So if you haven't started to lay people off yet, or you haven't made those changes, I would hold off a little bit and try to figure out this bank situation as quick as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nate, another name that gets butchered, Nate Van Krauenberg. Did I pronounce that right? Do you think?
I don't know. God, that's another one.
That's a tough one, man, Nate. But he put the small business relief, some stuff that a banker that he had worked with attached, and so we have that on that resource page as well. But yeah, a lot of stuff to think about. We got to get some counseling, whether it's an accountant or whoever. Coach, let's talk a little bit about training, just to create some normalcy here. Somebody, Michael McKies. Michael McIsaac wrote, I was wondering about people's thoughts on the incline one-arm suspension rows. Would it likely suffer the same fate as the assisted one-arm chin-ups? Obviously, those could be pretty brutal. Just talk to us about this idea.
Yeah, it was funny because he had asked, I think, maybe a month ago, he had put up something about one-arm push-up. And I think one-arm push-up is sort of a stupid circus trick kind of thing, in terms of, I don't even know why people bother trying to do it. It's just not an easy thing to do. And you see people who figure out kind of how to get their feet spread and their arm positioned and all this stuff. And then, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, look, I can do this. It's like the pistol squat. It looks great at a pool or at a party or something where you can impress your friends, but it's probably not much from a training technique standpoint. Whereas the one-arm row, and it's interesting, I just was looking at that thread before we got on. I need to try that with Mark and Michaela, because I have a not a TRX, but basically like a suspension setup that I hung off my back deck. And I want to see how that one arm works with them, because I think it'll allow, probably to get to get into like some sets of 5, some lower rep stuff, because it'll be a little bit harder, but not impossible. Whereas I feel like the one arm push-up, I don't feel like it's impossible, but I don't feel like it's all that practical, I guess.
Yeah, there's definitely an anti-rotation factor in this too.
Yeah, anti-rotation and or rotation. When you start looking, we used to do them on the TRX, and we played around with them. And then I think sometimes there's so many of these exercises when you say, oh, that's a really good exercise that we stopped doing. We would almost do one like where we opened up from the row. Do you know what I mean? So instead of anti-rotation, sort of open up and then reach back across.
Yes.
That I really liked. And I kind of look at some of that stuff now and think, wow, why don't we still do that? And there was something the other day, and I should have wrote it down, because I wrote it. It's actually something on the forum. I said, wow, that's another of the, in the exercise category of things that we don't do that we need to do again. And I can't remember what it was, which is
You
even worse.
wrote that actually, didn't you, on that thread?
Yeah,
Even yeah.
I gotta go back and find the thread and figure out. It might have been about the one arm row. It could have been in that thread, but I feel like it was something else.
Yeah. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, that looked good. There's a couple of videos there that we posted on there too. So for members that are on there. So, Coach, all right. Well, we're going to let you go. Thanks for coming on. Thanks right after your Zoom staff meeting. We really appreciate it. And hang in there, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Hannah. I appreciate it. I appreciate everything that you're doing.
All right, guys, right now at Perform Better, free shipping on orders over $49. Obviously, restrictions do apply for that one, so check that out at performbetter.com. Remember, they can create customized package to help you fit your online training right now. So obviously, we got a whole new situation here, but you can either order some stuff, come up with a equipment package for your clients that you can buy and drop ship it, or you can kind of come up with something at Perform Better that they can sell to your clients as well. So check that out. The summits are still on as far as we know. Orlando starts it off in June, and there's Long Beach, Chicago, and Providence. So go to performbetter.com for all their products and info on their educational seminars.
Hey, this is Greg Cook, and I got a few observations about movement. Last time we talked about what are you actually correcting, and sometimes if you throw out the corrective too quickly, you won't realize that sometimes adjusting the lifestyle or workout will actually change the movement screen just because it's inappropriately loaded up top in your workout and in your performance, or it's inappropriately reset in your rest and regeneration practices in your lifestyle. So fixing movement in a toxic environment or overstressed environment may actually allow movement not to tell us what we need to know. And that brings me to a second thing. What is your strategy? Because many of the conversation and debates I've been sucked into over my career in both rehabilitation and fitness have had me talking way more about tactics and strategy. And what I just talked about previously was the strategy of saying, listen, if your wellness is broken, I don't feel obligated to fix your function. I feel obligated to show you how fixing your wellness may have a measurable change in your function. And from whatever that change is, we've got a better base now to attack your function if it's still broken. But we've had a lot of people, by just making one change in their workout, their movement screen stabilizes. Zero corrective. We simply protected them from an irresponsible technique, an irresponsible load, or an irresponsible program that didn't line up with what they thought about the way they moved. Now, remember, back in the mid-90s, I'm a young strength coach, a young physical therapist. I'm watching my first daughter learn to walk, and I realize I can add nothing. I can only make this situation worse. She's naturally progressing at a self-limiting rate, exploring her environment, trying to get better locomotion and manipulation. That's really all we do with our bodies. As I watched her grow and develop, I realized, she's not going to walk until she crawls good enough to kneel. And she's not going to kneel and stand up unless that lunge or squat will support that. She's earning that stability as she goes through it. So what I started thinking is the strategy of rebuilding movement in rehabilitation should be more about the way the brain uses the body and not just the biomechanical stress we want to apply at the ankle or the knee or the hip and the muscles that run it. If you organize your system through postural elevation, and what I mean is when you're laying flat on the ground, that's a supported spine. And when you come up into quadruped or plank or crab walk or push up or any other way that you can be on at least one arm and one leg at a time, we call that a suspended spine, somewhat like a hammock between two fixed points, top and bottom. Well, the next way you can use your spine is vertically, but not standing. And that incorporates almost everything from sitting to half kneeling to tall kneeling to low kneeling. And that is a transitional posture. And the last posture is standing. So supported, suspended, stacked, and standing. You don't need to know anything else about neurodevelopmental progression other than you should own a movement pattern through all four of those spine postures. Listen to the way I'm using the language so you don't get confused. I basically am using the word posture to tell me what orientation your spine is. And then I'm using the pattern to tell me where your weight bearing is, where your transition is, and where your landing point is. And in these two things, we've taken everything we know about orthopedics, but put it under the control of the neurological system, combining the two things that impressed me most in physical therapy school, the neurological system and the orthopedic system. But I learned those in two different classes, and they didn't have that single test that allowed me to know, do I have an ortho problem over here at mobility and stability with a mechanical issue and tissue? Or do I have an inappropriate tone, inhibition, facilitation, trigger point, whatever, largely driven by the neurological system? And if I've got pain, I know I got both problems. It's almost impossible to have a unilateral problem. So if you've got pain, all bets are off. It's better to get it diagnosed than try to figure out the next best exercise it can survive. So the strategy that we've been applying all along is to make sure that we're not trying to fix a functional problem supported by poor wellness. We're not trying to fix a fitness problem that is underpinned by poor function, and we're not trying to improve performance if we've got a major fitness deficit in power or strength or stamina or agility. So we always play the supporting lower thing. And what I've found with a lot of people is we just keep adding strength. What I want to leave you guys with is we all make the mistake, and the quicker we see it, the better we are. I did a case study for a presentation I did at the World Golf Fitness Summit on an injured golfer. And I talked with Greg Rose about, here at TPI, we've got this great strategy of progressing people, but even then, if we focus too much on golf, we're going to miss a fundamental thing. Please watch that case study and see how we deconstruct that case and resolve the problem, not by being golf experts, but by being movement experts.
All right, now it's time for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. I'm here with Alwyn Cosgrove. Alwyn, how you doing?
Doing great, mate. Hopefully, I'm getting a lot of questions about the last two segments, so I'm gonna be excited to do this next one.
Yeah, well, I haven't talked to you in a while. So, Alwyn, I wanted to know, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, about reaching out to former clients and getting them back. Because not everything ends in a bad way. Like you said, hopefully it's you said in 2 episodes ago, hopefully it's the last gym that they ever joined. But there are things where financial things or timing things or, sometimes things aren't just the right time. So we have these people, this list of people that have already given us a try. And they might have still liked us and they might have loved us, but for whatever reason, it didn't work out. And it's always, and we do this at strengthcoach.com, and sometimes it's hard to do like the we want you back, but I can tell you like Netflix does it constantly. New York Times does it constantly. Like, hey, we want you back. We want you back. So what do you guys do about former clients? Is there a best way about going about, trying to get some of them back and how often? What do you guys do at Results?
So the first part to understand is that when you look at any business, and I'll ask people how many ways are there to make money in business, and they always it's unlimited. There's thousands of ways. But there's really only 3 ways. One is to get more customers or clients, right? Number 2 is to get those existing clients to spend more often, which would be come in more often to the gym or visit the restaurant more often. And the third way is to get them to spend more per transaction, which is the McDonald's model. Do you want fries with that? So 2 of the 3 ways are internal. That's your growth, right? So the first one is just to get more clients. But within that, I like to break that into 3 segments. And one is just acquiring new members, where you're just doing your marketing to get people who've never heard of you before and reach out to them. And maybe you're specifically targeting like your dream 20 members in town, like the people that run the local store or they run the local kids soccer team or a high school coach. You're targeting people, but you're just marketing to get new people. And then is referrals, which we talked about a couple of episodes ago, from your existing members. And the third one is former members, right? And as you said, the member maybe left because of financial reasons or something going on. And they're like, I can tell you, I was going to join with a speaking coach several years ago, and I was planning to join his program and work with him and attend the different events, etc. And I found out that I'd relapsed with cancer the day after that. So I never joined because of why his offer didn't work. It just was not the right time. I had other things going on. And I think sometimes people leave because of other things going on. And it might just be finances for a short period of time. It might be something else going on. Husband lost their job. Kids are sick. They're really busy in school or their job. They just got they're moving house and they just fall away. Right. And I've had clients come back. I had one client years ago. I come in one afternoon and there's a note on my desk from her asking if I would take her back as a client. And she was nervous thinking I wouldn't take her back because she'd left for 3 months. That's how they're thinking though, right? That maybe you're mad at them and they don't want to come back. So here's my thing. This is like getting back with an old girlfriend or boyfriend. Maybe they're not interested and maybe they are. But you're going to ask, right? Just going to go, hey, just thinking about you and wanted to tell you about something we got going on at the gym, right? Your job is you do the reaching out. And it's helpful if you have something to invite them to. Like, hey, just gone through all our former members. It's our 1 year anniversary coming up. It's our 2 year, it's our 20th year anniversary. And we're going to have a big party and we want to invite all our former members to come by. Got a whole bunch of new things going on. Come by and check us out. And sometimes that's enough. I've made some of our coaching group, you got to call 5 former members every week until you've been through your whole list. And every one of them doesn't want to do it. And every one of them reports back that at least 2 come back in.
Wow.
Right. They're looking to reach out. They didn't all leave you and go to another gym. Some, like, they're not all mad at you. Yeah, if they left, if you don't want them back, don't reach out to them. Right. But reaching out to former members, and like we've had like high school athletes stop training because they stopped sports, and I reach out and go, hey, I've got one who used to be a taekwondo fighter with me, and he's now a cop, and we just reached out to him, and it's been years since he was in, and he's back as just a regular member now, right? I've got kids that go away they train with me in high school, they go away to college, and I've got one who's now local, and he's a basketball coach for one of the local high schools. Like, we've been doing this a long time, but if I hadn't reached out, I'm not top of mind awareness with him anymore. So you just make a plan, like something to invite them to is cool. Anytime you do something new, make sure you reach out. A phone call seems to work better than email. And email marketing is down a little bit, but what you can't forget about email is somebody signed up to receive it. They can unsubscribe anytime they want, and they'll read it because they want to read it. So there's still some stuff there, right? Don't ignore it. Like, don't ignore it in exchange for just doing Facebook advertising, but just saying, hey, like, and if they don't want to come back, just like use that as a time, just like, what could I do to get you back? We'd love having you here. What can I do? And maybe they never come back, but you find out some information. Because I know we've got a client we bump into occasionally, and he just loved the one-on-one stretching. And as we moved to small group and got busier, we just thought it wasn't effective for us to do that. And he's like, that's the main reason for that. So there's a one-on-one stretch place opened up in town. Sent him a little gift certificate to go down there. Just thank you for being our client. And his wife came back in and joined.
There you go.
Right? Like, and it's just that idea is just reach out, something to invite them to. You do anything new, invite them back, and like, hey, they're former members. Like, thank you for your membership then. Now, if you've been listening to these segments before, we always talk about having a really nice 30-day VIP experience, right? Where it's not just a free trial, like it's a 30-day VIP experience. Send it to some former members, right? Just say, hey, Mike, used to be a member. Times are busy, and we've been busy too. We're doing a lot of different things right now. I'd love for you to come back and check us out. Absolutely no obligation, no strings attached. 30 days on me, and I'll work with you personally, right? Yeah. Or 30 days, I'd love for you to work with some of my new coaches. You can tell me what you think.
Yeah.
Right. Bring them in almost like treating them like they're consultants to show your growth and what they like. And, it's just key is that no one's going to renew 100%, but don't get the assumption that anybody who leaves you is just dead forever. Right. They hate you, and they've joined. Very rarely do they join another gym. Very rarely, right? They usually, I'm going to do it myself, or they're out of the area, or they move back into the area, right? But part of it is, even if you just reach out and they don't come in, you've just been at top of mind awareness for them for a little while, and maybe the next day someone mentions about joining a gym or doing a workout, and they mention you, and then that you build that referral culture from somebody that's not even been in your gym. It's the best phrase I can come up with is, you're trying to get back with the old girlfriend, and you just got to reach out and come up with some type of opening line to get a conversation started, right? What you don't want to say is, hey, hiya, can you come back and give me money? Right?
Yeah,
I'd love
yeah.
you to come back in and give me money. But reach out, invite them to something. Hey, we're doing a charity workout, just thinking about you. And I'm going to invite all my former clients to come in. I want to have a big party. All our clients last year, if they've just left a year ago, hey, it just popped, and you got an excuse now, just popped up on my social media as one of my memories. It was a workout we did last year. I just giving you a call, check in, see how you're doing. But it's just vital. This has to be part of your ongoing thing. You can't be doing this when you're scrambling for money, because that energy can be told.
Yeah.
That, oh, he's reaching out because he's broke, right?
Yeah.
Like, got to be doing it. So when you start thinking about new clients, 1/3 of your efforts have to be on brand new people, and that's your branding and positioning. 1/3 should be referrals, and 1/3 should be reaching out to former members all the time.
Absolutely. I think one takeaway from the last couple episodes that I think people should think about is the word intentional. You have to be intentional about this. It has to be proactive. It can't be reactive. So, retaining people is intentional. You have to have programs. You have to have specific things. If I come to you and ask you, what are you doing to retain people? You should know that already, because you've already thought about it. Same thing with, what is your referral program, and what are you doing with, like you said, with your former clients is, hey, you have to call 5 people until you go through your list. So I think intentional is a great word. So great stuff, Alwyn. We really appreciate you coming on and kind of helping us with this idea about kind of maybe getting some former clients back in. So thanks for doing this.
Cheers, my man. And they're actually the easiest people to sell to, because if they've left for a reason. If you fix the reason, or it's changing their life, then the objection's gone. They already know what you do. So just make a point of doing it, guys, when you're doing this. Is that it's new clients is great, referrals are awesome, but former clients are easy pickings. Just you do the uncomfortable part and reach out first and start the conversation going. And as usual, guys, resultsfitnessuniversity.com or any of my social media channels. Just slide into my DMs with any questions you have.
Hey, this is Adam.
And this is Tim.
Welcome back to the Train Hook Dare-Driven Coaching segment.
Yeah.
So Tim and I realized that we tend to talk a whole lot about strength and not a whole lot about the conditioning side of things.
Just like when I'm programming for myself, Adam, all the strength stuff is up front, fun. Tend to never get to the conditioning part.
Yeah, it's just like doing those prehab drills or whatever that you program in your warm-up. You're like, no, I'm good.
Yeah,
let's do the first set.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, jokes aside, let's talk about conditioning. And since we're talking to people who are probably not strictly endurance athletes or coaches, what we're really talking about is concurrent training.
Yeah.
In a nutshell, that means trying to train multiple potentially disparate qualities simultaneously.
Yeah, so think about it this way, folks. Okay, if you have field or court sport athletes, football players, soccer players, basketball players, you're going to bring them into the weight room and you're going to train strength and power, right? Make those folks strong and resilient and powerful. But they're also going to do some running on the court, maybe do some sprints. That's kind of another vein in this, but they're going to do something that's going to help them with their endurance or, making that fast and power last. That is concurrent training.
Sure, and a lot of those sports you just mentioned, they do rely pretty significantly on things like aerobic capacity.
Yeah.
Which is,
Bingo.
The kind of the polar opposite of training for singles or something, right?
Yeah, you got it.
All right, so I think a good place to start out with is to talk about the interference effect.
Great.
And so this is kind of like this well-known or at least well-publicized idea that doing both at the same time is going to steal your gains.
Right.
And I think the first thing, there's 2 things actually that I'd like to mention about that, which is, one, it doesn't mean that you don't get better. It just means that you don't get as much better as you could have done if you'd only done one of them.
That
right?
makes sense.
That's what that means. It
Right.
just means that the effect size is
Right.
smaller.
Well, it's the same
for the strength training.
Yeah, it's the same with anything, right? I mean,
Right.
if you take something away from something else, you're not going to get as good as that one thing as you would if you focus solely on it.
Sure. The other thing is that it doesn't look like training for strength simultaneously with endurance, for example, hinders endurance or aerobic adaptations.
Right.
As long as you maintain the volume and intensity of that endurance training, which is a big if.
Yeah, exactly. And we hear that all the time here, especially we do deal a lot with endurance athletes, and there is that kind of, facade over their eyes that, man, me doing strength training is really going to pull from my ability to endure through this long race,
Sure. Okay, so I think let's start with, there's a really well-known meta-analysis that gets passed around a lot. Is that Wilson study from 2012, I think. Yeah. And just to lay it out, I don't want to go over the whole thing, but to lay it out briefly, it took a bunch of studies that basically said, well, let's have a strength group and let's have a strength plus endurance group. Yeah. And we're talking pretty simple case here of just adding traditional cardio on top of resistance training, and then measuring the impact that had on power, strength, and hypertrophy development.
Great.
Right?
Love that.
So it breaks it down. So the first thing I think to realize is that power is more susceptible to the interference effect, muscular power is, than strength hypertrophy are. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you were strictly trying to, improve your, vertical jump,
sure,
right? Doing a lot of endurance training would probably interfere with the development of that to a significant degree.
Right.
Again, the effect size is still positive. You can still improve.
But now that jump isn't as high maybe as you wanted it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Correct. Yeah.
And then hypertrophy and strength are a little less susceptible. So they still can be impacted, right, by adding a significant amount of endurance training.
Sure.
But now things like the intensity, the mode, and the volume start to matter quite a bit.
Yeah.
As to how much and whether you see that effect.
Yeah.
And so tends to be muscle group specific.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you're thinking like training stress, there's like a global stress, there's also like a local stress.
Right. Gotcha. Now, that's interesting you say that. So what's as a coach, I think about like the cost this is putting on the athlete, right? So like as a sport performance coach, I'm able to balance those things throughout the week and kind of make those things opposite. So I'm not stressing those same muscle groups in terms of the conditioning, quote unquote, and the strength work. But what if your sport, Adam, is like both of those things at the same time? CrossFit is in my mind. You know what I mean?
So you're setting up this case in which maybe you just did a squat workout.
Yeah.
And now your WOD is like a bunch of assault bike wall balls. And,
my quads.
you've just upped the training stress in the quads. Yeah. You're giving them a different stimulus, right? You have now a really strong anaerobic, metabolic, stress there.
Sure.
And it may play some havoc with your recovery and adaptation to the strength.
Exactly. And those are all things you have to keep in mind. And that changes, Adam, from population to population, demographic to demographic, keeping in mind all those other things, life, sport, that those folks are going to go through. So to me, it's beneficial to kind of balance those things out so they're not super, interfering with each other.
Yeah. And then the other thing we said was the mode matters. So for example, running is probably worse than cycling. So running has like the eccentric component to it. There's probably some more muscle damage or eccentric strain happening there.
Yeah.
And then the frequency and the volume. So if you're doing something like 20 minutes of low intensity cycling a couple times a week, just basic, that's like really low level, like if you were like a lifter who wanted to do a little cardio, probably isn't a big deal. But if you start going out and adding running an hour several days a week, now you're adding, again, that's actually going to have more of an effect.
You got it.
That's going to do it for us today. Go to trainheroic.com to start your 14-day free trial. When you're talking to one of our representatives, tell them the Strength Coach Podcast sent you for 10% off a year of the Pro or Elite Edition.
Welcome to a special DVRT series on multi-pointer training. My name is Josh Hinken, founder of DVRT. In part one, we talked about what are the planes of motion and why should we care about them. Part two, we talked about how we're going to see progressions and work them a little bit into starting your program. In part three, I gave you concrete examples of how we establish movement patterns in the sagittal plane and then introduce these other planes of motion. Now, in part four, I want to talk about higher levels of multi-pointer training and how this looks in your workout programs. Because I'm sure many of you are wondering, when and where do I use this in my training? So for one, we have to understand when we get to higher levels of multi-pointer training, because we're asking the body to both produce and resist high levels of force at the same time, this is higher neurological activity. And when we're creating a program, our most neurologically demanding drills should be done earlier on. As when the program goes on, we become neurologically fatigued. It makes sense that we would do drills that demand less of our nervous system, i.e. more stable, as we get through the program. So even though some of these exercises I'm describing will carry less weight in their performance, as I discussed in the last part, that can be a little misleading because we don't know how much force we are actually having to resist. So in the last part 3, we talked about the need to resist force first. We're resisting frontal plane and transverse plane forces. That can happen in a myriad of ways. One way I love to describe is anytime we use a half kneeling position, whether it be for pressing or rowing, definitely for pressing overhead, it can be very profound because as I press overhead in the half kneeling position, I have to resist the lateral plane, but also resist extension of the body. So half kneeling is a wonderful way to build some of these multiplanar concepts because the position itself is multiplanar. I'm trying to remain in my position while resisting these other planes of motion. Of course, over time, we want to go over how do we see more frontal plane movement and transverse plane movement. Let's talk about frontal plane movement. As I described, there's way more to it than a side plank and lateral lunge or even a suitcase carry. Each of our 7 movement patterns can be broken down into moving to the frontal plane. Last time I talked about the squat, so let's talk about the hinge this time. So a deadlift is obviously a great foundation in building a hip hinge. Sagittal plane, very stable environment. Now, we've been teaching this since 2006, and it's great to see a lot of people catch on, is their sprinter stance deadlift, which is where we go to a heel-toe relationship with the back foot's heel off the ground. That's meant to be an incremental change in your stability, and when we do so, we now also incrementally add the need to resist lateral forces and rotation. Now, a lot of people have gotten on that sprinter stance, but they don't know where their full system goes because this is the age of social media and 30-second clips. So if you take the system further, the further back we start to begin that step, the more demanding we make on our ability to resist transverse and frontal plane forces. So that's us still resisting. But then we can actually take that and move through the frontal plane. So now how about a lateral step deadlift? While a lot of us are familiar with lateral step lunging, most of us are not as much with lateral step deadlifting. And just like we would want to differentiate a squat and a hip hinge with a deadlift, we also want to differentiate a hinge versus a lunge. So like the squat and a lunge, we're looking for a more vertical torso. In a hinge, a little bit more horizontal. So again, we can start building these patterns in more complex environments. The highest level, though, as we move through this series, is when I can actually move one segment of my body while having stability in another. Let me give you a very good example. Our max lunge has become quite popular. Max stands for multiple axes. So if you imagine I'm drop stepping, I'm holding our ultimate sandbag in front of us, and as I step back, I rotate the weight to one side. So what ends up happening is the weight is moving in a different direction than my own body. When you think about most strength training exercises, the weight is moving in the same direction of my body. So this is quite different. The need is for the lower body to produce enough force to move up and down the lunge without falling over, while my lumbar area, my core area there, is actually resisting rotation, while I want to produce a little thoracic rotation. When we look at everyday movements and what athletes do all the time, it often requires the demand of having the ability to stabilize one area and produce motion in another area. This becomes higher level multiplayer training where we have to see how we apply this into more advanced training programs. This can apply to foundational strength or power development. We see that in our max lunges. As we get to higher level swings, we actually have to produce more force. As we produce more force, we also have to resist more force. So it's hard to even talk about the muscles that are active because so many have to do so at once. In order to produce high levels of force and resist it, we know we have optimal movement pattern development and motor system engrams being worked as well. In other words, we're building efficiency in movement. We're building how these chains work together synergistically. We can't isolate any of our chains. We should be teaching them how to work better together. And that really is, as Dr. McGill talks about, the essence of functional fitness. So that's it for me today. Hopefully you enjoyed this series. This is Josh Hankin. And if you want to check out more information on what we're doing with multiplanar training, you can check out the upcoming Perform Better Summits or go to dvrtfitness.com.
All right, now it's time for the BodyByBoyleOnline.com. Hit the Gym of the Strength Coach segment. Become an insider to Mike Boyle's Strength and Conditioning with staff meetings, in-services, and complete access to the MBSC programs. Go to BodyByBoyleOnline.com. All right, today, really great timing. I got Christopher Duffin on. Chris is the co-founder and chief engineer at Kabuki Strength, which is an organization devoted to optimizing human performance and making the world a better place through strength, which we'll talk about in a little bit. He previously worked as a corporate executive, which is pretty wild. He's turned around automotive, aerospace, heavy equipment, and high-tech manufacturing industries. And we're going to talk about his story, The Eagle and the Dragon, and he goes all into this, which is so wild that considering where he is now, I kind of wasn't expecting this in the story, but he's previously been ranked #1 in the world in various powerlifting disciplines. He's held numerous world records. He's retired from that, although he's still going hard doing lifts for charity. He's known for his industry-changing innovations and education in the strength and clinical worlds. Great speaker on topics related to strength and human movement. And like I said, he performs insane feats of strength to help charities and organizations whose work he believes in. This weekend, he just did a 1,000-pound squat 3 times. I just watched it on Instagram. Very cool. He's the author of The Eagle and the Dragon. Chris, thanks for coming on.
Hey. Great to be on, man. Looking forward to some good conversation.
All right. Well, first of all, congratulations on you just squatted 1,000 pounds for 3 reps. Just were you going in? Were you confident? Did you feel good about it? Because that was a little bit earlier than you expected.
Yeah. So I've been working on this for 4 years, actually. Well, it wasn't just the squat, but I was pretty confident that I'd be able to hit that 1,000 for 3, and I set that goal like years ago. But up until this last couple months, I had some issues come up just as just from handling that much weight very frequently, that really destroyed my confidence, and I wasn't really sure on game day whether it was going to happen or not until I got under the bar, and it was moving good, and I felt good.
And now, just before we get into all the Eagle and the Dragon, because I want to talk a lot about this, that was you have something called Grand Goals. If I'm butchering that, please.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about what you do for that.
So, well, first, our charity is still rolling strong. So we're raising money for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Foundation. And so you can buy Grand Goals shirts on our website. 100% of proceeds go to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Foundation. And you can also donate directly via the site as well. But the Grand Goals is something I set in place 4 years ago. I decided I wanted to be the first and only person to do 1,000 pounds for repetitions on both a squat and the deadlift. So 3 years ago, I did the deadlift. I didn't lock out the 3rd rep. But I got at 2 3/4, 2 7/8, whatever you want to call it, with 1,002 pounds on the deadlift, and that still stands as the Guinness World Record for the heaviest weight ever sumo deadlifted, because it was done at an exhibition event, which was a world championship powerlifting meet. And then I spent the next few years continuing to work on my axial loading, so basically, loading top to bottom on the spine and developing my capacities there. And then a year ago, started training specifically towards this goal, which we did a week ago. I was supposed to be done in San Diego at the IRSA show, which is the largest equipment show in the world. And of course, that got canceled at the last minute. Understandably so, no complaints there. All done for the right reason. So we moved it to my gym because basically I had to do this. My body couldn't, take training any longer. So, we pushed it right to that line of that date. And then when things started changing like they are right now in the world, it's like, I can't come back and do this some other time. I can't walk through this process for another year again to get prepped if I have to take a break. It's either now or never. So that week leading in, things kept getting locked down more and more. We end up having to close the event completely, even to our gym members, because the gyms closed down. So it was just the staff and myself, and we did a live stream event that, like I said, tons of people logged in for and completed that 1,000 for 3, which is essentially my last big feat of strength. And so I'm kind of walking away from training at that level. Obviously, training is going to be an integral part of my life. But there's some key components of why I do this stuff. And one of those, and it ties really closely to, where we're living right now, is to inspire people. And yeah, it's just lifting weights. I get it, but it's really showing people that you can accomplish really more than you or anyone else thinks possible if you really set your mind to it and do effective goal setting and are disciplined in your actions towards your goals. You can pull off phenomenal things that everybody's going to say can't be done. And so that's a big piece of it. Second piece is the charity, using it as a platform for awareness there. And the third piece is just, I'm a movement and rehabilitation expert, and putting myself in these environments, I learned so much in the process by putting theory to work in a scenario where you're on the ragged edge and you can find out what works, what doesn't, how to put things together, because your feedback is nearly instantaneous. Instead of testing something for 6 months, I can find out in a matter of days, hours, weeks, whatever it is, whether it's effective or not. And so it's a huge learning process and validates what we teach and what we do. And so those are kind of the three main reasons that I do this. And so that's grand goals. 1,000 pounds is a grand. Grand also as just being huge and over the top, right? And that's the inspirational part.
Yeah, it's very cool. Love it. I'm definitely getting a Grand Goals t-shirt. We're going to have a link to that on my show notes as well for everybody to get that as well. But Chris, I loved the book, Eagle and Dragon. And I think it's like I said to you earlier, what timing? Because originally, I think we contacted in February. I listened to the book, and then you had scheduled for March 30th, which is today. And I was like, oh man, I just finished the book and I was so excited to talk to Chris. But this worked out so perfect because this is a story of resilience. When people say, I'm just saying this to the audience, when you hear people say they came from nothing, okay, disregard that until you read this book, because Christopher came from just this story of growing up homeless, and the things that he had to overcome are incredible, and where it led him. So, Chris, I want you to basically start out. The book is called The Eagle and the Dragon, and you actually have a couple of tattoos on your body, the eagle and the dragon, but you also broke the book up into 2 parts. So talk to us about the significance of the eagle and the dragon.
Yeah. So, it is an autobiography, right? And so I've got 2 tattoos, both sounds minor. They're 40 hours a piece, each of them. So the 2 tattoos pretty much cover all my body. But I had each one done at fairly critical, turning points in my life. And they really became the genesis for how the book is written. So the first one is the eagle. And so I've got a giant eagle across my stomach trying to take flight, and another one across my back trying to take flight. And each one's got a chain around its ankle, and it wraps down around my leg and is attached to a shackle at my ankle. And the birds are trying to take flight, and the meaning behind it is you can fly to whatever heights that you want. The only thing holding you back at the end of the day is yourself. And so I had this done around 20 years old, and it was really where I was as a person. It was about self-discovery. It was about separating my identity, like the ability to hold myself back because of how I perceived myself and what I could accomplish, and trying to free those things. And it'll make more sense when I start talking about what I've been through at that point. So you mentioned growing up, poor and homeless. Now, when we see people saying poor today, a lot of times they still got a gaming center and a smartphone. And I grew up in a tent in the wilderness, foraging for mushrooms, fishing to put some fish on the table. Heck, 6 years old, I was living in Northern California out in the wilderness. We had beams lashed to the trees, so with our bedding up in the trees, because there was rattlesnake dens everywhere. And I was taught, for my own safety, how to go out and capture live rattlesnakes by hand and kill them by hand. Why? Because I had to live in that environment. It didn't matter my age. So, 6-year-old me with this rattlesnake holding its head in my hands, watching it wrap around, feeling it just like that cold, scaly skin, wrap around your forearm as it coils around there, and it's hissing and, flicking that tongue out at you and looking like straight at you with these, beady eyes that it just wants to kill you. That's its instinct. It's like, that's its, meaning in life right at that moment is to kill you. And so it continues on, to bathe, it's things like going down to the stream with a gallon jug of water and filling it up and letting it sit in the sun all day long on a rock so it gets warm so you can dump it over your head to bathe. And so my upbringing, up through high school was kind of in and out of environments like that. During the winter, we might find, a home or to live in. Sometimes they're condemned homes. A lot of times they didn't have electricity or running water, or would have electricity and not water, just various, things like that. Maybe living. It's a period of time that we lived in a 16-foot trailer. Just pace that out sometime and look at that and imagine a family of 6 living in a 16-foot trailer in 2 feet of snow, where you can't go anywhere and do anything. There's no room. You have one seat to sit in, or you're standing outside.
Yeah.
I was actually sleeping in the back of a pickup truck, or trying to do my best to sleep. It was so cold, and I didn't have Sub-Zero bags or anything like that. So anyway, I ended up doing really well in academics and sports, and ended up with a full ride scholarship, academic scholarship. I was actually supposed to wrestle in college too, but I got a full ride academics to go to an engineering school. And I decided, that's probably going to be a little bit more valuable to my life than continuing the doing some collegiate wrestling.
Yeah.
And so I'm in college, I'm working full time because, again, I've got no fallback plans. There's, if I call home, I gotta send money in the mail.
Yeah.
Because that's the request anytime I have contact. So, there's nothing. So I'm working full time. I'm going to school full time. Well, kind of. I didn't actually. That's a whole nother story we don't need to get into. But I was really good at school. We'll leave it at that, and didn't have to invest as much time as most people. But things got worse at home. I ended up taking custody before I finished my engineering degrees of my sisters, one at a time. So, here I am, senior year in college. I'm running my own business on the weekends. I'm working. Actually, by that time, I was already working in industry as a manager and buying a home, working on my second engineering degree, and raising 2 teenage girls. So, and then not too long after that, a third one. But that's when I had that tattoo done. And so it's really about getting people to realize that, there's bad things that can happen to you, and they can be traumatic. So, I'm skipping over a few things, but, in the course of the book, we talk about dealing with murders, dealing with human trafficking, being taken by the state away from your family. There's drug running, drug abuse, like all sorts of just really nasty things that happen to me or the family over the course of that. And those things, they're going to impact you, but it's not a definition of who you are. We find so many people in this world today, you ask them who they are, and they'll tell you this story like I just told you. Or, my parents were alcoholic, there was abuse, or I'm the person with a bad back that's always going to be in pain and, not going to be able to do anything. Like, they define themselves by those things that happen to them. And that's a slippery slope, because your identity is actually not those things. but how you respond to those things. What are your actions and responses is the definition of oneself. And that's how we go about this process of realizing our full potential, finding our strengths, and really, engaging and growing in this world. And so I don't want to, take anything away from people that have experienced those things, but separate your identity from that environment, those environmental factors that you have no control over, to actually you and what you have control over, which is those responses and actions. Because it could be a pity party.
Yeah.
It could be a pity party really easy.
And there's plenty going on right now.
There's a lot of people that didn't know my story because I didn't tell it. But in the process of this book, it's not about like articulating how bad and how horrible it is. I use this book to help share the lessons that were formed in this process.
Yeah.
Okay. And asking the right questions to help you dive deeper and really set the foundation for putting things in your life that are going to really drive meaning. So from there is the second half of the book, which takes place a little bit longer. But I ended up, I did fairly good at, as an adult. I wanted to there was a lot of, growing up, people are laughing at you, in school. Kids are mean.
Yeah.
I'm the kid with dirty clothes, with toes sticking out the side of my shoes, living in the trailer down by the river, right? So, I really just wanted to, I believe, show the world that I could be a normal, productive member of society. So I went out, got an MBA, went to school for 2 engineering degrees, and started working in that sector, and really quickly found that I could impact people on the leadership side of things and bring a lot of change. And after a number of years, I became a corporate executive, and a sought after one, where, if a company was struggling, they'd bring me in to turn it around, to grow it, fix issues. My biggest one was going into a failing aerospace company I was brought into, and they were about ready to lose their contract with Boeing and dissolve into bankruptcy. And, all the employees, 150 of them were going to lose their jobs. And I turned it around over the course of 3 years, and to the point where it was the number one supplier in the world to Boeing in its category. It's been 28,000 suppliers for Boeing, by the way.
Wow.
So pretty phenomenal performance from failing to number one in the world. Got them turned around financially and prepped them and saw it through the sale process to resolve the financial issues, keeping Boeing happy, all the employees employed. And there was a lot of work going into that with cultural change and all those sorts of things. But that's the world I was living in. And I got the house with a white picket fence. I'm married with 2 kids. The American dream. Like, that's what I was trying to show. And I sat there and I'm just like, is that my dream though? And I started realizing and doing some reflection. And that's when I got the second tattoo done, which is the dragon, the Ouroboros. And so there's a giant dragon head on my chest, and then its body wraps around my shoulders, my arms, my back, and then all the way back around to the chest again. And its tail is sitting across my sternum with the mouth chewing on it. It's eating itself. And that sounds a little morbid or grim or what have you, but to me, it's the Ouroboros it's known as like the continual renewal of life, infinity, or, eating the old, becoming the new. And that's really exactly the take that I had on it when I put it on, because to me, it's the purposeful reinvention of oneself. So it's specifically deciding in this world, who do I want to be? And how do I want to impact the world? And becoming that person. So it goes beyond just like discovering your strengths and, the first half of the book, but this very purposeful decision to reinvent yourself into who you want to be. And that's exactly what I went about doing. So I realized in my my work and why I've been successful is I love coaching people. Like, I love being able to help people realize that they can accomplish a lot more than that they think they can accomplish. And I was effective at doing that. And that's one of the ways that I got such great engagement, and that allowed me to get the results in the companies that I did, is through empowering people by challenging them and helping them see success. And I realized that I wanted to do a lot more. I knew so much via my personal education on the side in biomechanics and rehabilitation and all this. I started lifting somewhere in junior high, right? 1988. And I started competitive lifting in 2000, and I owned my own gym from basically 2003 on. Started in my house, ended up being a commercial location that me and a business partner ran on the side, never thinking that it would be something that would become my living, because I did really well at what I did. And I'm like, a gym, that's never going to be able to be able to meet the needs and expectations that I've set for my family.
Yeah.
And so it was always the side thing. But the more I started thinking about it, I'm like, this is where I need to go. I need to share, because I'd been developing a network of some of the top clinicians and researchers and thought leaders around the, human movement and biomechanics and recovery and all this on that one side of the industry. And that knowledge, I felt I really could have a huge impact. I saw major gaps in the strength and conditioning world in both the equipment and the methodology that was being used. And so I walked away from a very good, well-paying, very secure career to launch Kabuki Strength, and put my life savings and everything that I'd busted my ass on for my entire life to be where I was on the line. And that's when I retired from powerlifting as well, because again, I wanted to do things on my own, and I wanted to, be able to express my strength and my strength conditioning in different manners than I was able to do in the format of a specific, powerlifting competitive event. And so I walked away from that, made a lot of personal changes in my life. One of those included a divorce and then a remarriage a couple years later. But really realizing those changes that I needed to put in place to be able to allow me the opportunity to chase things that I want and build a team with the same vision. And that's a team at work, that's a team at home. That's, the personal changes as well, to really be able to make a positive mark on this world and help people with living better through strength. And that sounds kind of cheese and, could mean a lot of things, but it means very specific things to me. Like, people that have found physical culture know how impactful that is on your emotional well-being, your mental well-being, your longevity, the impacts that it has when you take care of yourself, on your family, your friends, and everything else. And when that gets taken from people, it can be a very sad thing, and people really struggle with it. And so that's what we built around, is putting the tools and methodology in place to eliminate those things in the strength training world that are done bad, or the innovation just hasn't been there yet. So we have a principle-based system around what we believe around movement and loading. And since then, I founded a couple other companies. Foot mechanics is huge for me. So there's Barefoot Athletics. Supplementation, if done correctly, can be very additive, is the icing on top. So I co-founded Build Fast Formula, which is a phenomenal supplement company brand. And then I also wanted to impact the mental and emotional side of things, which is why once I built things to the level where I could spend a little bit more time on some personal projects, I wrote what is now a best-selling book, The Eagle and the Dragon, that we're talking about right now.
All right. Yeah, obviously a lot to unpack there, but I want to go a little deeper into this idea of whatever happened to you, it's not who you are. And a reminder, here's Chris living in this 16-foot trailer, and everybody's complaining right now about kind of this lockdown that we're in for the coronavirus and having to stay in their apartments, which are certainly cushy, and they have the internet and they have phone, they could still do a lot of things. And then this whole idea about pushing away, because there's this idea about, okay, surrounding yourself with people that inspire you to do better, right? And, you were talking about in the book what the people that also inspire you, but you're inspiring them, but that also inspire you. You were surrounded by a lot of people who could have brought you down, and there could have been a lot of resentment there. Could have been a lot of this idea that, hey, this is who I am. I belong in the woods. I'm never going to have any money. How do you feel? Because you didn't choose that. And so we can say like, oh, look, you just overcome it. But how do you really feel like you because you kicked ass in high school. You were a straight A student. You were a star athlete wrestler, and you got a full boat to college. So how do you feel like you really overcame that piece of all the stuff that what happened to you you didn't make that become who you were?
Yeah. And, to give some context, you've read the book and I touch on it in there, but, a lot of the people that I grew up with, like in those younger years, they're dead. They're in prison or they're drug addicts, like all around. And the story goes, my brother, who is one of the ones I wasn't able to have an impact on and not able to reach, he's sitting in San Quentin right now. Mm. My cousins, both dead. The list goes on. And so, yeah, just being alive and being functional member of society is a success in my book. And that's really why I ended up taking custody of my sisters. Now, why did I end up being able to kind of turn the tides? I think it's really comes down to survivor mentality, in the fact of like, one of the things is I was a number of years older than my siblings. And so I was the one that was, when my parents were out tending the crops in the mountains, I was taking care of the kids when they were out cutting wood, or, when they got into legal trade later and were mining, they were out working the mine and I was watching the kids. And then later, as I, went through college, I literally, I couldn't make mistakes because it wasn't me. It was those other people that I had to take care of and that relied on me. And I think that's been something that I've continually done in my life, is put people around me that have to kind of rely on me in some manner. Because it puts you in this state of, at least in my earlier life, because like when I started reflecting on my younger life, when I was in my mid 30s, late 30s, as I was starting to make the changes, moving towards the dragon, I started to have a lot of emotions around it, and realizing and reflecting, look at my kids at the age that they were, and thinking about my life when I was their age. And it just like brought a lot of sadness and emotion right to the forefront. And I'm like, I didn't have those when I was growing up. But you think about like what happens when there's some sort of tragic situation and, people are fighting for their lives. If somebody's breaking down, oftentimes what they do is take that person and put them in charge of someone else. And then when they do, they regain this control of themselves. And so that's what I'm talking about, survivor mentality. I think I was just in this position that put me in this state that I wasn't really being traumatized in the same way, or I was putting those things away or behind me in some fashion. I really think that that's a big part of it, because I didn't have, growing up, anybody that I really looked to. There wasn't one. We didn't have TV, so I didn't have a lot of exposure to like popular media or anything like that. So I didn't follow sports stars. I didn't look up to any actors. I didn't have those experiences. I had books. I had a lot of books. We were a very well-read family, but that was my experience. I think that's how I ended up in that position. But let's talk a little bit further about the relationship side of it, because you touched on that. I think it was the second question. I don't remember exactly what it was, but about putting people around yourself that inspire you. And we hear, especially in a lot of the entrepreneur world, business world, things like this, speakers talking about kind of what I talked about earlier, cutting ties with some of the negativity around you and things. I think the bigger piece is actually not focusing on the cutting out, but the making it the right, investing in the people that you really care about. Mm-hmm. The ones that are making the relationship mutually beneficial, the people that you care to invest with, because everything in this world happens through people. Everything, anything of value, it's not created just because of some great idea. People have great ideas to start businesses all the time. Great idea doesn't necessarily create a great business. It's not some strange new business model or this or that. It's the people that you bring in place to make these things happen. And so if we think about it, and we think about investing in the people, investing in our friends, investing in our family, investing in our business relationships, means you got to cut something somewhere. So yeah, you do have to do those other cuts, but it's not so that you can exclude them, but so that you've got the energy and the resources to put it into the people that you care for.
Yeah, love it. I also was telling you earlier, I think part of what I see in you is, a lot of people can look at this and take your upbringing partially the wrong way, in terms of like your mom or your stepdad or your dad, just saying maybe you could be, like I said earlier, you could be angry with them. But I think what I saw was that your mom and I forget your stepdad's name. What was your stepdad? Pat.
Yep.
Pat really loved you, and I felt that love reading that book, and I didn't just feel like I wasn't angry with them for what they were doing. I was more, I saw that they loved you, and I felt like you have this great ability of this forgiveness and acceptance. I don't hear any anger at all. Number one, when I talk to you, but even when I read it, and I think that's a huge piece of it, that you were able to forgive. And you obviously still have a good relationship with your mom. You've helped her out. Whatever. And you still talk to her. And you could have went the other way, but I think there's a lot of that forgiveness and acceptance that has gone a long way to help you kind of accept and move on to be able to do what you've done.
Yeah. It's, you never know somebody's situation and their reason for their choices fully. And there's certainly a lot of things that my parents did that could be looked upon negatively. But at the same time, there's so much that can still be learned from them, and recognize that a lot of that is in me and what's made me successful in this world. Like my mother. She had some tragic things happen to her growing up, and those ended up leading to her not trusting authority and really not wanting to be part of normal society. She was highly intelligent, was supposed to be, had a scholarship to go to school to be a chemical engineer, graduated top of her class, 1,500 students down in Southern California for both academics and athletics, just like myself. And she decided that she was not going to be, she was going to find her own place in this world outside of normal society. She was going to figure out some way to make it happen. And she finally has, which is what she's doing today. She lives out in the middle of nowhere, doing her mining and kind of making ends meet as best she can. But that's exactly kind of what I ended up like. That's why I had my crisis, in my 30s and going, hey, wow, I got the American dream, but like I clearly something is missing. And it's, oh, I do need like this chaos and challenge and crazy in my life. And I go a little nutso without that. And also I'm not really good with authority or rules myself. So I end up having to create kind of my own, world within my company so that I can come and go as I please and do what I need to, and really let that allow me the opportunity for my creativity to really start coming and flowing than being in this very restricted, regimented environment that I did well in. But man, I really struggled in that world to the point that I had to make change. And so I've kind of created what she wanted away from society, but in the midst of society, I guess. So, at the end of the day, my job, for my companies is just being myself and present online in the media that I produce. Like that's a strange freaking job.
Yeah. Your mom was ahead of her time too, by the way, social distancing.
I know. I call my sister lives in the same town as her. And so the entire county, which is one of the larger counties in our state, for frame of reference here, has, I think looked it up, it's less than 1,000 people in it in the entire county.
Okay.
So they live in one of the bigger towns in the county. It has a population of 110.
Nice.
And there is no, if she didn't pay attention to the media heavily, because she does actually love politics and world events like crazy, she would probably have no idea any of this stuff's going on, because her life is socially distant. That's that is it. She lives in the desert.
Yeah, there you go.
And my sister lives out there in another town, or in another house too, in the same area.
So when I was in the bar business, I used to have managers under me like that I would train, and I would always tell them, listen, you can't expect the people that you're managing, or let's say coaching in this point, under you to be like you or to have that same path. You have a certain work ethic, or you have a certain path that you follow, and you have to kind of guide them on their own. From your perspective with the business, how do you, and coaching, because you kind of go after things, you really go after things hard, and you have a certain way. How do you coach that or be a leader when you have that? And it's hard to expect people to do that, because you're a unique individual with the way you go after things. From a coach's point of view and a business perspective, how does that work with you?
Yeah. So very early in my career, I realized, I've got my own way that I think things should be done. And I can be a little stubborn. I'm a fairly smart individual, and I'm pretty confident that my approach is going to net the best results, right? But what I realized is it didn't really matter that another technique or approach that I think is subpar could end up netting better results if the team taking it on believes in it and they want to make that happen and prove it. And so it's really better to focus on the principle, the ideals, and have people figure out how to get there. And also that it creates a lot more engagement, because if you tell people specifically, step by step, here's what I want you to do and how I want you to get this done, well, it takes all the fun out of it for them as well. They're just a drone, a bot doing, pulling levers. And so this approach doesn't work for everyone, obviously. Some people do need that high level of direction. And honestly, they're not good fits as leaders in my organization, because that's really, I want people that are going to come in, take ownership, and then tell me, all right, here's the end result that you want. Here's my plan of action. Here's my benchmarks, and this is when I'm going to get it done. And then they have the ownership. They have the the onus. They've got to, it's on them now. It's not like, hey, you need to go do this. This is what, the plan, and I want you to get it done by this date. They've taken that on and they're owning it. And that means they're also accountable for it personally, not because I said you're accountable, but because they're the one that stepped up and said, this is what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. So that's one of the ways that I try to mold things. And then I try to work more as a mentor in the fact of, I am here. I believe I have some ideas that can help you, but you come to me and let me know if you want my help. And so they'll hit me up. We'll brainstorm together, if needed. And, people, if they don't, want to just, everybody leads and manages in a different style. Some are less, needing that, that type of attention, and some are more. So it's, that's a big piece. The other piece is pushing people. And that could be taken the wrong way. What I mean is finding things that scare people that, hey, here's a big giant project, and who wants to take this on, and really finding, that person that's you believe is capable of it, and getting them engaged and, taking ownership of that project. And they're scared, but they're also confident, and you've got, there's some excitement about it, and you're not going to set them up for failure. If you need resources, let me know. But it's all about like getting people to reach past their own limits instead of just coming to the office and doing the same thing for 20 years. How do we do this? They need to like do something that is scaring them a little bit. And that's really when people start doing that, and then they start seeing success, they become very, very engaged in their work. And when people are engaged in one aspect of their life, you'll start seeing it roll over into other aspects of their life. They're more engaged with their family. They might start getting into exercise or fitness if they weren't there before. You'll start seeing this like cascade into other areas, and you start seeing some big wins. And then all of a sudden you start seeing, evaluation going on in their life, and them taking on things that they've thought about forever. Like, oh man, I'm 45 years old. I always wanted to go get, this bachelor's degree, but I was scared to do it. And I'm going to go start taking night courses. Okay. Or it's another person. I always wanted to have my own business, and, I'm going to, appreciate all the mentorship here, Chris, but I'm going to go out and step on my own and start to, hey man, go for it. If it's going to make you happy. But you'll start seeing these things happen in people, they're more engaged in life. It's not just work. Like if we get into this pit of just comfort and stability, and we're used to living in that place, and everything's about getting through to Friday so I can make it, the weekend, and, watch some beers and binge on some Netflix. That's not, that's fine to do, but like, that's what some people's life is year over year, decade over decade. And you change like one little aspect, and all of a sudden you'll start seeing that change through their entire life.
Yeah. And you said exploring the unknown, becoming familiar with fear is a practice. You have to consciously choose to live in fear, but just kind of go a little deeper. Like without having, my boss, Chris Duffin, helping me with that, how should people kind of go about this to kind of consciously choose to live in that slight fear, those butterflies? Because, you didn't really choose that at an early age, this uncertainty, loneliness, constant change.
Yep.
So how do you seek that out?
So one is just coming to terms with the fact that if you haven't been, that's okay. Human nature is to seek comfort. Now, as a conscious human being, though, we need to realize that once we find that place, we need to move on. And there's a reason for this. And it's very based in science. Okay. And everybody knows this that is probably listening to this podcast because it's fitness based. And you go to the gym. What are we doing in the gym? We're applying stress to the system. In that instance, we're applying some physical stressors. And as is human nature or biological nature, we're going to adapt to that stress. That's what we call getting gains, right? We become more athletic, coordination improves, strength improves, all these things happen. Now, if we don't go to the gym, we don't apply stress, what happens?
Nothing.
We start losing our
The other
gains,
way,
the
yeah.
process of atrophy.
Exactly.
So the opposite of growing, so literally the opposite of life almost, the process that leads towards death starts happening, okay? The atrophy and wasting of tissue, okay? This goes well beyond just physical, though. If you don't challenge yourself mentally, why do we have schools? Why do we read? Why do we do these? Why do we play challenging mental games? Why? Because that is a stress. That's how we adapt. And out of that, we adapt and grow stronger and more capable. Now, if we quit doing those sort of things, we get, just like if you quit going to the gym, you get physically soft, you're going to get mentally soft. Emotionally, the same thing. Now, we can't just like throw stress after stress after stress on, is not what I'm saying. It's a balance of stress and rest, right? Because if I did 9 hours of CrossFit every day, 7 days a week, what would happen? Not good things.
Yeah.
So just stress nonstop. And so that's where, like I said, I mentioned a lot of people that didn't make it from my life. They had too much stress that they beyond their capability to respond to. But you can also raise your threshold for being able to respond to those stressors. How do you do that? Finding stress and adapting to it. That's how we become more resilient. Think about strength as resilience. Okay. So how do I get physically, mentally, or emotionally more resilient? I apply stress, and then I allow myself the chance to recover from that stress just long enough. And then I apply stress again. So you can choose to do this exactly like you choose to go to the gym. Okay. So examples, I gave one already. You're at work. Boss throws up a crazy challenging project, says, who wants to take it? And you normally would try to disappear into the back of the room. Hope they don't see me. I'll look down at the table. That one's got me scared, man. That's a big one. Okay. That's your signal. Take it. So every time this happens, you're going to get this churn in your gut. Okay. And you can think back to the first time you met your partner in life. Okay. If you don't have one, you probably had, people at certain times that meant something to you. And there's this courting process, right? And in that process, what happens? You've got this mixture of like fear, anxiety, and excitement. From the moment of leading to the first time that you communicate, all the way through the growing of the relationship. Okay. A lot of this stuff happens all the way up, proposing, getting married. Like all these are big, major life changes. But we did have some primal urges that kind of drove us and made us overcome it. Well, you're not going to have any primal urge saying, take that scary project from your boss. You're not going to have a primal urge going, hey, maybe you should go find another job. Oh, this job over here is like, yeah, that could be scary. I don't want to leave the comfort of my job. I don't want to, or in my case, the comfort of a career that I love to put everything on the line, to start a business, a side business. Okay. Going back to school, the list goes on of things in your life that are coming by. Find those ones that make that little twist in that stomach, and then you feel that mixture of anxiety, fear, and excitement. And those first two emotions, anxiety and fear, make you want to turn and run, and that's normally what you do. But if you get that twist, that is your signal right now to say, that is my opportunity for growth. that is my opportunity to challenge myself and become more resilient. And that's how you actively do it. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Like, because you, at the same time, it doesn't have to, you don't know what's going to come at you in the future, but you ever see like people that have something tragic, a loved one die, a loss of a, a major career, and they lock up. They can't even function because they can't respond. They did reach this point. Like, that's why we need to raise that threshold for those, so that we're not soft, that we can actually respond and try to work and overcome. Okay. We need to stay in this practice. You got to treat it just like going to the gym. Just because you did it once 20 years ago, you're married and you got a great job and you're comfortable and sitting there. Like, you need to work on those strengths in those areas. Like, we need to be well-rounded individuals, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually.
And it's really important right now because, like you said, I mean, if you're locked up right now, you got to overcome that to understand that, okay, this is going to happen again. Something like this will happen again.
It will happen again.
And
guaranteed.
You will be prepared for it. So this is why, I mean, I like what you said. Discipline starts when you stop wasting your life doing stupid things. And I was telling you earlier that I was on the Muscle and Fitness podcast, and they asked me what was one piece of advice that you would give trainers right now. And I said, get off Netflix right now. And I don't mean all, stop watching Netflix forever, but just basically saying people are sitting there complaining, locked up, worrying about, canceled, their gyms are locked down. They can't train people. They don't know the technology, whether it's Zoom or Train Heroic or whatever, however they're using it. And they're kind of giving up. And, and you can't be, there's so many ways to learn things and to overcome those, that even if you're not prepared now, be prepared for the next time. And that's where I think your vision is a better world through strength. And I feel like this is how strength can help us, and why it is so important to teach people about strength, because even for me, obviously I don't lift anything like you might lift, but every time I'm going for that PR, I'm a little nervous and I'm kind of pushing it. When I do get it, I feel so
exactly.
good. Yeah.
We know this when we go into the gym, but somehow a lot of us forget this when it comes into life. And I think it's natural, like, but be aware of it. And, there's crazy stuff going on right now. Take control over the things that you can affect and start working those. Understand like your values and what you want out of life. Nothing wrong, like I said, with binge watching a little Netflix, but know why. For me, I do it here and there because it's something that me and my wife enjoy spending, a way that we enjoy spending time together. Mm-hmm. So it allows us to sit there and talk about, a documentary as we're going through it and back and forth. And we enjoy that together. It's actually time together. It's not to just fill a void and just, I'm going to sit there and do it myself, but there's differentiation here, right? Understand why and get what you need out of those things. But it should not be the point of your life to be just a consumer. The consumer and the comfortism, that's a weird word I just made up. But those are things that's for your rest and relax period. Now you got to move, you got to step up, and you've got to take action and become a creator, a doer. You got to take on challenge, and work on providing, taking on those things that are going to require you to develop some resilience and strength in those areas to overcome. I mean, it's that simple. And it's so, I'm repeating myself, I know, but it's so important for people to hear this message, especially right now.
Absolutely. And I'll remind everybody, it's an amazing book, especially right now. You will be inspired. It's The Eagle and the Dragon. We'll have links for that. And follow Chris's The Mad Scientist Duffin.
And we haven't gone into the process around like understanding your values, goal creation. There's a lot of very practical things in this book because it's written not to talk myself. You'll realize that, Anthony, you've read the book. It's not to talk myself up. It is not like the autobiography is a framework for me to share those lessons of self-exploration and kind of walk you through that process and provide you some inspiration.
Absolutely. And,
And
like I said,
I think it's executed very well in that manner. You're going to get something from it.
absolutely. And, again, with this being these times, a lot of people are in a situation where they don't have revenue coming in. A lot of people have been laid off. A lot of people's gyms, they don't know if their gyms are going to open back up. And, they're facing some tough times ahead. The worst is yet to come. And at least in this respect, you'll get some inspiration from Chris's book, The Eagle and the Dragon. We'll have links to all this. So, Chris, thanks so much for coming on. I took enough of your time today. We could be on here all day, but you have so many great stories in this book as well. So thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really love the way that you led and directed the podcast, my friend.
All right, that's going to do for episode 278 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Remember, you can try strengthcoach.com right now. We extended the trial 30 days for just $1. You'll have access to all the articles, videos, and programs, as well as what we consider the best forum on the net. It's the only place to have full access to Coach Boyle. He's on every day. Remember, we got some new COVID-19 resources on there, resource page, and a new forum. So to access that offer, go to strengthcoach.com, click the Join Now button to get started on your trial. Special thanks to Chris Parrier and the folks over at Perform Better. Remember, free shipping on orders over $49. And remember, they can create customized packages to help you fit your online training. All right, thanks to Coach Boyle and Christopher Duffin for sharing their insights and philosophies into the world of strength and conditioning, performance enhancement, online training, and life in general, and strength. Thanks to Adam Doughty, Tim Robinson, and Train Heroic. Head over to trainheroic.com to start your free 14-day trial. Let them know I sent you. If you love it, you'll save 10% off your first year of the Train Heroic Pro or Elite Edition. Thanks to Alwyn Cosgrove for the Results Fitness University Business of Fitness segment. Check them out at resultsfitnessuniversity.com. Great cook and functional movement systems. Check them out at functionalmovement.com. Josh Henkin and DVRT Systems. Great series from Josh. I really appreciate him coming on and doing that. Check them out at dvrtfitness.com. My name's Anthony Rennie. You can check out my new book at belikethebest.com. It's 50 interviews with top fitness pros, and after each interview is a Be Like, which is an action step or a challenge that will help you be like the best. You can get that at belikethebest.com. You can get that on Target Publications, or you can go to continuefit.com. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks for listening, and I will speak to you next time.